If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. When the channel reaches 1,000 subscribers, I'll share a surprise story I prepared especially for you. The sun had already slipped behind the dusty mountains, casting long shadows over the barren plains. A lone cabin stood at the edge of the settlement, its weather-beaten logs scarred by years of wind and sun. The land surrounding it stretched endlessly, dry and unforgiving. There were no trees to soften the harshness of the landscape, only a patchwork of scrub and rock that seemed to disappear into the horizon. Inside the cabin, Mary Owen sat quietly by the hearth, the warmth of the fire flickering against her tired face. Her hands, rough and callous from weeks of work, stirred the pot of beans on the stove, the scent of salt pork filling the air. The dim light cast long shadows on the walls as she glanced toward the door. A few moments later, the soft sound of boots scraping against the porch signaled his return. Ethan McAllister, the cowboy who had saved her life. He had been gone for most of the day, riding into town to fetch supplies. Now, as he stepped inside the cabin, the heavy weight of his presence filled the small space. He set down the water bucket with a quiet grunt, his shoulders bent as if the world was too much to carry. His eyes, cold and distant, swept across the room before they finally landed on her. He didn't speak, but she could feel the unspoken question hanging in the air between them. After a long moment, he walked over to the table, his movements deliberate, as if each step was measured by some unspoken rule. Mary didn't say a word. She continued to ladle beans into the tin bowls, her hands shaking slightly as she set his portion on the table in front of him. She studied him in the firelight, noticing the lines etched into his face, the tiredness in his eyes. She wondered if he regretted rescuing her, if he ever thought of walking away. He was a man of few words, a cowboy who had seen too much in his life. She had heard rumors of his past, how he had once ridden with a gang of outlaws, how the weight of his sins followed him wherever he went. He had a way about him, a quiet intensity that made people take notice. Yet, in the silence of the cabin, Mary couldn't help but wonder, why hadn't he claimed her yet? They had been living together for over a month. Ever since the night he'd intervened when a gang of men had tried to take her by force. He had stepped in, his gun drawn and steady, sending the men running. After that, she had nowhere to go. He had nowhere to go. And so, they had found themselves living in this cabin, bound by necessity, not love. But every night, she waited for him to speak, to break the silence and say what had been on her mind since the moment they first crossed paths. The question that had grown in her chest like a burning coal, why hadn't he claimed her? Ethan sat down at the table, his gaze fixed on the floorboards, as if the weight of his past had pressed him into the ground. Mary's heart raced, the question finally escaping her lips. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "why haven't you claimed me?" He didn't look up right away. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. But then his eyes lifted to meet hers, and for the first time, she saw something in them, something vulnerable. "I can't," he said quietly, his voice rough from disuse. "I can't claim you because I'm not sure I could be what you need. I've been a man who's lived by the gun, who's seen too much violence. I carry that with me. Everywhere I go, I don't want to bring that into your life." Mary's chest tightened at his words. He was afraid of his own past, afraid that his darkness would touch her. "I never asked you to change, Ethan," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling inside her. "I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for you." The fire crackled between them as the tension in the room thickened. Ethan stood, walking over the window as he stared out at the barren landscape, his thoughts distant. Mary stood up, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I've been waiting for you to claim me, Ethan," she said, her words falling heavy between them. "But maybe I've been waiting for the wrong thing." Ethan's back stiffened, his jaw tightening as he turned toward her. "What are you asking me, Mary?" he said, his voice low but sharp. "I'm asking you why you stayed," she replied, stepping closer, her voice growing steadier with each word. "I know you're not here out of pity. So, why haven't you claimed me? Why haven't you made me yours?" For a long time, he said nothing. His gaze softened, and Mary could see the battle waging inside him. His past, his guilt, his fear, all was pulling him in every direction. But as the minutes passed, Something shifted in the air. She had asked a question, and now it was his turn to answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but filled with raw honesty. "Because I've been scared," he said. "I've been scared to claim you because I didn't want to bring my past with me. I didn't want you to have to live in the shadow of my mistakes. But the truth is, I've already claimed you. I just didn't know it until now." Mary's breath caught in her throat as his words sank in. He had claimed her, not with promise or a title, but with his actions, with his silence, with the way he had stayed despite everything. The tension between them seemed to dissolve in that moment, replaced by something stronger, something unspoken but understood. Ethan stepped toward her, his hand reaching out to gently take hers. "I'm not perfect, Mary," he said softly, "but I'm here, and I'll stay as long as you'll have me." She smiled, a quiet, tender smile that held more meaning than any words ever could. "I'll have you, Ethan. Always."